What's up, everyone? Welcome to this odd video out. What we're going to do is we're actually going to try out kind of a podcast format. So in this video, we're going to actually go across news, topics that you guys have asked for in the comments, as well as different things that don't really fit into our regular videos. So hello, everyone. It's good to have you here. Welcome to the Slant 3D podcast, I guess, for lack of a better term. We haven't really thought of how we want to go about this, so we're just going to kind of hash it out. But literally what we want to do with this store is kind of make it a news show. So we're going to at least give it a shot and see what we can do here. So hopefully it's all going together. We slung some stuff together, both audio and visual, and we'll see what we can do there. So I've got myself some notes that we'll go through, as well as some things here on the computer, and we'll just hit it up. So the first little section here will be just general news. And let's go ahead and start. What have we got for me? NVIDIA's Magic 3D. So you may have heard of ChatGPT. ChatGPT is a language model that uses advanced AI that is trained on billions of internet reference material in order to create text based on a text input. And that's fine and dandy, but what is the good of having text created if you could have 3D models made instead? So Magic 3D is NVIDIA's entry into this, and actually they just released it as kind of a research paper in the last couple weeks or so. And Magic 3D, what they use is an academic paper that has gone through a number of demonstrations where they have created a number of reasonable 3D models. So one of the examples is like a frog and that kind of thing. It's not that new. When ChatGPT came out, Google actually released a 3D model software. I believe there's Dream Fusion as a response to, yeah, Dream Fusion was Google's. And then like Fizna.inc, which runs things, has also created an AI 3D model generating prototype. Here's the thing with these. These are really tough to do. So 3D model from text input is a tough thing to do. ChatGPT, of course, can create like scripts for OpenSCAD and that kind of thing. That's a different thing. For the computer to creatively imagine a part, spatial understanding is really, really hard, and there is not a lot of data available online to get a hold of it. So there's not a lot of ways to train one of these language models on that, because it doesn't understand, it barely understands right to left, let alone behind, next to the flange, put a hole that allows this other bolt to fit into it or something along those lines. It's really tough to give that kind of spatial reasoning to computing systems. Number one, because there's not enough data. So if you're doing a brute force method where you want to show the AI millions of 3D models, there's only somewhere between 15 and 50 models out there on the internet right now that could train this type of a system. So what you basically have to do if you want this to work at all is use what NVIDIA and Dream Fusion have done, which is to use NeRFs, where you basically take a 2D image and then you project out based on the shadows and kind of the spatial information inside of that image to create a point map. And a NeRF is basically a point map from different light shadings and that kind of thing, to vastly oversimplify what a NeRF is. But you pull 3D information out of a 2D image. And that works fine and allows you to work with 2D images, which are way more plentiful than 3D models. But it's still really tough. And computers can still have some difficulty with what is behind that image. But it will get better. And it's getting better very quickly. But 3D models that are reliable and manufacturable coming out of this stuff are going to be really, really hard to do. But it's an interesting topic there, and it'll be interesting to see how everybody goes at it. Fizna, which again, like I said, runs things, is an interesting entry to it because they actually have a database that allows them to create this kind of stuff, and their database is around spatial understanding of parts. So they're in a great position to take advantage of this. And you may not know this, but Fizna has two components to their business. One is the things, which is kind of the consumer part of the business, and the other part is their B2B side where they help companies organize their 3D assets and like find spare parts based on designs and that kind of thing, which is very close to this. So of course they have some interest in it. Their demos are kind of trivial. They took a couple of weeks and they said, let's give it a shot and let's see if we can make something. But making high fidelity, reliable, manufacturable parts that could be printed, 3D printed. This is something that we've messed with and we're very interested in. But it is hard, and it's still, productization of it is a little ways out. Demonstration of it, of course, is very easy to do. We've done demonstrations in-house ourselves with this kind of stuff here at Slant 3D, but it's just something you can't really allow. It's a hard problem, guys. It's just a really hard problem. And that bears its whole own sort of discussion, but we don't really have time for it here this time around. Anyway, next topic here. Desktop Metal boosts productivity by updating cost-cutting plans for 2023. This story is from 3D printing industry. I've seen it a couple other places. Industrial 3D printer manufacturer Desktop Metal has announced an additional $50 million cost-cutting plan for 2023, which will prioritize operations and investments based on near-term revenue generation, establishing the firm to meet its long-term financial objectives. 4 facilities will close, and Desktop Metal will reduce its workforce by approximately 15%. Okay, this has been a long time coming. Desktop Metal has been acquiring a huge number of companies over the last couple of years. I mean, I don't think I could count on my hands the number of companies that they've bought. And that's a bunch for any single, basically startup to actually start acquiring. But Desktop Metal used their really high stock price early on to buy everything from Envision Tech to Forest and all the other ones they've got. They've got a ton of sub brands that they acquired, basically. But this has been a long time coming, because when an organization buys a bunch of other companies, you kind of buy all the redundant departments inside of it. Like, you don't need a legal department over there and a legal department over there and a legal department over there. There are enough lawyers running around already, and you don't need more. So they're basically downsizing and integrating those acquisitions much more fully. So they get rid of the redundant components of them. So they're like law, accounting, maybe parts of recruiting and HR and that kind of stuff. All of those are administrative positions that can exist within Desktop Metal itself and are not necessary to run these individual divisions within the company now once the organization is acquired. So this is something that Desktop Metal has to do. It's unfortunate for the folks who are going to be caught in this layoff, but it's also not surprising. And they'll be able to, there's a lot of work to be done in the manufacturing industry, so I'm not worried about those folks too much. It should be a minimal disruption and give them a chance to move into other positions wherever possible, because manufacturing is incredibly ripe right now for new folks to join up. So that shouldn't be a huge deal, but it's also just been on the I should have silenced my phone earlier, and I should do that right now. But like I said, we've been kind of winging this, and we're filming it as is. This is why you have a co-host on these type of podcasts, so that kind of silly stuff doesn't happen and can address it. And if I was paying closer attention, I would have turned that off, but I wasn't. But anyhow, we're gonna push on through, folks, and we'll clean it up the next time around when this becomes more regular. But yeah, Desktop Metal has had this coming for a long time. With all of their acquisitions, there's no doubt that this was coming down the pipe. It's unfortunate, but Desktop Metal is one of the startups that has been hit really hard within the 3D printing industry, so it's not surprising. Next topic. And moving on into Ultimaker launches the S7 for 3D printing power users. Oh, Ultimaker. You guys. So the S7 is improved. It's an improved version of the S5. It has like integrated part filtering and some better bed leveling techniques and some upgraded hardware and sensors and that kind of thing. But it's not a leap forward. But to be fair, there haven't been many big leap forwards in Ultimaker, and that's okay. FDM is a very well fleshed out technology. Making it more refined and more reliable is a perfectly reasonable thing to do, especially from Ultimaker's perspective, where they really support their existing client base and they don't want to break the workflows of their existing clients. It'd be cool if they did some cool stuff, but it's not really that necessary. And Ultimaker sits in a position that is not occupied by too many other users, especially now that they're partnered up with MakerBot. But it's not, it's not that big of a deal. Kind of disappointing, sure, but not surprising. And Ultimaker, to be fair, they got a lot of stuff going on. They're trying to integrate MakerBot, which I can't imagine is going super smoothly because it's tough to integrate a whole different company. But on the plus side, what Ultimaker has been doing with things like Thingiverse has been fairly impressive. Like they've partnered with Fizna and Things in order to have products over on Fizna or on Things moved over and posted on Thingiverse automatically, which is a really good partnership and a really good move because it allows Ultimaker's making Thingiverse better. And Thingiverse, what everybody knows, has been going downhill really steeply over the last few years. So it's a good improvement and good for them. But yeah, the S7, a slightly more expensive version of the S5, big deal is what it is. Also, kind of selfish plug right here. I was on the 3D pod the other day for 3dprint.com. It was really fun talking to those guys. Joris and Max were a lot of fun to talk to. And it was a good talk. So we talked about like mass production 3D printing and how print farms work into it. So if you guys are enjoying this and want to hear my stupid voice more, go over there and listen to that. And those guys, we talked about all kinds of fun stuff. It was quite a bit of fun. Next topic. Is Markforged preparing for a buyout? So, with a new year comes a new severance package for executives at Markforged. This is from 3dprint.com. The metal and carbon fiber 3D printing company filed a Form 8K published on January 3rd. Well, we're a little late to this story, outlining details related to how executives would be compensated if let go from the company, particularly if there is a change in management. Does this mean that the company is preparing for such a change, possibly via acquisition? So, the 3D printing industry has been hit really hard this last year. Almost everybody has had their valuation, every public company has had their valuation drop 5 to 10x, which is enormous, and actually more than what all the poor tech companies are whining about, who have dropped by, 20 or 30%. And maybe some startups have had their valuations cut by half, but the 3D printing companies have had a brutal year. Shapeways was worth $1.5 billion a year ago, and now they're worth $30 million. Markforged was worth $2.5 billion 12 months ago, and now they're worth, what are they worth right now? What's their stock? Hang on, let me dig this up. Today they're worth $273 million. Large numbers, sure, but way down from where they were. Shapeways was downgraded to a penny stock. But anyway, rough year for everybody. Markforged is an interesting company because they have actual hardware, dedicated customers, and a very recognized brand. And a long time of existence. Heck, they're coming up on their 10th year now. But Markforged is not trending in a good direction right now. So well, here's the thing. Is it possible that Markforged is going to get acquired? Right now, they have $150-200 million of free cash left laying around that they can burn through. That's quite a war chest. That being said, Markforged is an expensive company. They have manufacturing that they have to keep rolling and filled and everything else. So it's not that $200 million could disappear quickly. Last quarter, they had $25.2 million in revenue and a net income of minus $23 million. So basically they lost $50 million. They made 25 and they lost 25 at the end of it all. So they spent $50 million in all of it there. To be fair, that was out of tune for Markforged because the quarter previous, their loss was way smaller. Honestly, I don't know if they did some big acquisition or something, or maybe it was like purchasing for the end of the year or whatever it was. But it was kind of out of spec, but it also wildly expensive and a wildly big loss for them last quarter. This is not a financial show, and I don't intend it to be, but we got to talk about this in order for folks to be happy about it, and to know what the context is. But based on just last quarter alone, yeah, Markforged could be up for sale because they might not be able to afford continuing. But I don't know that for sure, and we'll see. As far as who would buy them, I have no idea. And that would be utter speculation. No other 3D printing company has the money or the interest in doing it. Normally, I would say Desktop Metal, but Desktop Metal is cleaning up their act right now and optimizing. They're not looking to acquire. That being said, Desktop Metal is really ambitious, so they might give it a shot. They still have some money laying around. But it's so... Markforged and Desktop Metal don't get along because they have a past. They used to date, and now they're not on good terms and that kind of thing. So it's kind of an odd situation. But that being said, if they're in a rock and a hard place, they take what they can get. But I don't know who else would be interested in Markforged or who else has the resources to be interested in Markforged. As far as the paperwork being filed, people file paperwork all the time. And I can't imagine that Form 8K that changes the executive compensation if the company it changes management is that significant of a thing to do. So it's not like they spent 6 months planning out this change for getting ready for an acquisition. No, I kind of doubt it. But it's also an odd thing to do right now because why does it matter if the company's not planning on some change in the future? So yes, it's all rumor, it's all speculation. We're all staring at stuff and saying, "Ooh boy, guess what?" But it ultimately does not matter. Because who knows what they could possibly be doing. Anyhow, next thing. Single toolhead Prusa XL to begin shipping in March. After repeated delays, the highly anticipated 3D printers will start shipping in March, Prusa Research says, with multi-tool head configurations following after further testing. This is from all3dp.com. Good for them. Good for Prusa. The XL has been delayed for a couple of years now. So to see them move in, finally get it out the door, is a good thing. And that's awesome. They had according to Joe in his video talking about this a couple weeks ago, they've been having problems with the rail suppliers that they were using. They just weren't staying up to snuff, which is a fairly simple thing to occur. Manufacturing errors in that type of a motion thing, not uncommon for a precision piece of motion equipment while still maintaining cost or low cost. So good for them getting it out there. It is going to be interesting to see how the Prusa XL performs. Obviously, they have a bunch of pre-orders because they've been taking those for a while. But since then, the Bamboo Labs X1, Carbon X1 has come out, which kind of competes in the same area. I think the XL is a little bit bigger. And of course, it's a Prusa, so everybody loves the Prusas. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out over the next couple of years. Prusa and everybody else kind of got a wake-up call from the Carbon X1 and how popular it was. While everybody else was still having supply chain problems, Carbon shipped on time from a Kickstarter and have a machine that everybody's happy about. So Prusa has been beta testing for a while, and they have a history and a brand, and that's great. But they are now kind of trailing the 8-ball, so it's going to be interesting to see how that goes. But good for them. It's great that it's finally coming out. I think first time we saw it was when they revealed the print farm system that they were doing at the Dubai Expo, like in 2020 or super early 2021. So anyhow, yeah, great for Prusa. Excellent there. All right, so that covers it for the news. Next thing. Okay, so small announcement. We're going to have a video coming out here super soon where we're outlining a new product that Slant 3D is releasing. And this one is really, really exciting. We've been working on this now for almost a year now, and it's just about to be released, and we're going to go over a lot of the details of it here in this new video, and then we'll be breaking out more stuff as time goes by. But be looking for that. Anybody who is looking to scale up their printing capacity, this is something that will make that exceptionally easy to do. I don't want to give away too many details right now, but please do tune in if you're interested or looking to expand your 3D printing capacity, because Slant 3D is going to be providing a product that enables that in a really big way here super soon. So stay tuned for that. Final topic, 3D printed shoes. Discuss. Okay, so this came up. We're, for the channel, we're working on a video or two around 3D printed shoes. And it has come up a couple different times because we're also working with a couple of clients right now on 3D printed shoes. And we can't talk about the clients in any format, but it's been on our minds and we've been discussing it. 3D printed shoes kind of seem to be coming back up out of the depths of despair from a while back, because they've been around since 3D printing. Ever since desktop 3D printing came around, there's been the 3D printed shoes or people attempting to do it. Right now, recently, you have like Zellerfeld and a few other folks doing printed shoes. And of course, the Adidas 4D and so on and so forth, which, by the way, we're going to be going into detail of all of those in that next video that's coming soon. But 3D printed shoes are at a weird sort of a state because they're still super early and super targeted towards early adopters. So it's going to be interesting to see how they do. There's a couple of things that they have going for them and a couple of things they don't have going for them. A couple of things that they have going for them. They are trendy. You can create all types of new designs and new products, and it's super cheap to do so, which is kind of a first. 3D printing does what 3D printing do, and it makes the creation of a new product very fast and very affordable so that they can iterate quickly and try a lot of different variations. That's awesome. There's also the feasibility of like perfect fit, where you scan your foot and yes, the shoe you get will definitely fit you. That's there. It's not terribly new, not terribly hard, but it's good and it's useful. Customers don't care that much because shoes are pretty good at fitting on your feet today. Here's what's interesting to me about 3D printed shoes, kind of the engineering challenges. Durability is still tough to define. We can print at Slant 3D. When we've worked with shoes, we've been able to print with all sorts of materials that are very reliable, and if the shoe is well designed, then it works fine. And yet at the same time, there have not been shoes that have been out there for a couple of years. So the endurance and long-term testing of these shoes is kind of indeterminate. So there's that. The other thing is style. Right now, a lot of these shoes are designed to where they are meant to be a very fashion-forward type of item. So I think of like the Zellerfeld shoes. They make a statement, and that's fine. They're a piece of fashion. They're supposed to make a statement, but it's not necessarily something that the mass market would adopt. I don't know. The Gen Zers have a different kind of taste from myself as an old millennial. But we are, the style choice is very bold and very fashion forward and not really necessarily a mass market type of option. Again, doesn't matter. It's in an early adopter stage. The production capacity isn't really available to produce these shoes at really large volumes. Heck, Slant 3D is probably one of the largest capable providers of that kind of stuff today. Of course, there's like, the Adidas 4D and that kind of thing, but that sure, 100,000 shoes is still not a lot of shoes. And yeah, that's very producible right now, but it's not mass production. That being said, the other thing that is just odd to me, and I'll throw this out to just everybody down in the comments. Thanks for making it this far, by the way, if you made it to this part of the conversation. The shoes that you're wearing on your feet right now have a liner, a fabric liner that provides breathability and comfort and fit. Almost every 3D printed shoe relies on the polymer material itself to act as that intermediary layer, which again is fine. There's nothing to stop that, but seems kind of necessary. When you're making a shoe out of rubber, sure, it's great if that rubber, that plastic feels like fabric from whatever cool software trick you're using. Again, like the Zellerfeld and any number of other 3D printed shoes that have tried this in the past of like 3D printed fabric. It is a great idea, but it's still fundamentally rubber. And even though it breathes better and looks better and so on and so forth and has a texture and kind of a feel to it that's great, you're going to sweat into it. And I don't know what that does to it. I don't think this is a bad problem. I don't know if it's not a problem at all. Quite frankly, I just don't know. But I feel like the 3D printed shoes are still early in the full optimization process. Now, there are shoes that can be made. I've seen some fantastic shoe designs that work just as they are today. The other day we were looking at Instagram and No Sales. They had created a set of 3D printed slides that are fantastic, and they are ready to go today. And they're as good as anything else out there and look flippin' beautiful. But turning that now then into a shoe is way more enclosing than a slide, a sandal. So it'll be interesting to see how that all goes. But yeah, 3D printed shoes have a place right now, and they're a really good place for folks to innovate in and start pushing on stuff again. Because again, the production capacity is available to start scaling that up. And it is a product that can be improved and that someone can pursue reliably. So there's that. And that comes to the end of the podcast, guys. Hopefully this was interesting. Let us know down in the comments if there's other topics that you want to have us talk about. Let us know if you like this video format, this kind of free form, just sort of discussion, because we might keep on trying it here if it works out. So yeah, we can do deep dives into news. We can talk about what we're doing here at Slant 3D, and give more detail about topics that might not necessarily warrant a whole dedicated video during our normal publishing times of Tuesday and Thursday. So give us a like and subscribe and let us know what you think of this idea. Have a great day, everybody.